Okay.
So you've got a new series that you've been writing, and you've called it Gapmen, and you're releasing it through your Substack. Is that right?
Well, it's not necessarily a series. I am releasing the book in serial on my
Okay.
paid Substack, but it is book 9, 8 or
Okay.
9 in the Dragon Eye series, which features Vern, my dragon detective, that saves our world and the fairy world from problems where magic and technology don't match. And he's at the point where he really needs somebody who's kind of on his level to help him out with things. I mean, Sister Grace is great, but she can't do the physical stuff.
Okay.
And I have had the idea for Gapman for well over a decade.
Really?
And it's finally become the time for him to appear in this series. And so I was really excited to finally get to write it. And it just turned out so good. I'm really happy for it.
What is Gapman? Why the name? I assume there's a superpower here or something.
Well, the gap is what they call the interdimensional portal between the mundane and the fairy worlds.
Okay.
And yeah, there are jokes about the clothing designer and all of that kind of stuff. But so they call him Gap Man because he's in the town where the gap is, and he's there to protect the town. So he says.
Okay.
He's so excited.
Interested. Yeah. Okay. So you do why the serial thing? Like, as opposed to publishing it as a novel, you're just doing something different with your audience?
I'm just trying it out. I
Nice.
wanted to see if anybody was interested in being a first reader, early adopter kind of thing, and seeing if there might be an audience for the paid Substack. So it's an experiment, and to be honest, if I don't get a lot of paid subscribers, I probably will dump the whole paid subscription thing and just publish the books outright.
Yeah.
But I thought I'd give it a try and see, just to try and bring in another income. I quit my job back in March, and so in order to keep writing, I would like to be able to make a little money off it.
Well, that's always, there you go. So what's been the response so far? Have you had people enjoying it? Have you had any new people join you to subscribe and support you?
I've gotten more free subscribers, but I haven't gotten any more paid subscribers.
Okay.
So paid subscriber likes it. I have one subscriber.
Well, here's hoping that this video does help people check you out. And so we actually have an upcoming convention. It's our 3rd year doing this. I'm pretty sure you've been involved since day one with this LegendHaven.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're so happy to have you back, and you've got one session that you said would be really fun to talk about, which is, what is it? Creating monsters for your worlds.
Creature creation.
There we go, creature creation. So we're going to talk about that for a minute, because we've decided to do things a little bit differently this year. We have a writing camp that runs for about 5 days, and then we have the actual con. We've just been growing over the last 2-3 years and realizing there are a lot of readers and just general nerds who want to come to this thing. And
I love that we do.
yeah, we've started going after writers. That's kind of how we launched, and then realized everybody else wants to be in on this. Okay, so we're going to separate the two for a little bit. Special attention for authors and creators, and then special attention for everybody to come hang out and walk around the vendor halls and sort of meet each other and come to keynotes and have fun that way. So the 2 topics that you pitched, which I thought were awesome, one was creature creation, creating monsters for your worlds, and then for the actual convention you said something like, what was it? No tame lions, or how fiction shouldn't be or isn't always safe, something like that. Let's go there for a second. Why does that topic interest you?
It started interesting me when I heard a speech by Regina Doman, who does retellings of fairy tales in more of a YA setting. And the fairy tales aren't always the sweet Disney version. And so she was talking about the difference between Christian fiction, especially like Christian fiction was 10, 15 years ago, and what Catholic fiction is like. And she said that it was like the difference between a greenhouse and a hothouse. One of them, and I always mix up which one's which, but one of them is about nurturing the plant their entire lives, keeping them protected from the environment. The
Interesting.
other is about giving plants a start where there's a harsh environment so that they can then be transplanted elsewhere. And her
That's such a
analogy
great
then,
metaphor.
yeah, and she said, Christian fiction, at least like I said, like it was, it's growing, it's grown since then, is a greenhouse, let's say. It's the one where we want to protect you, we want to put you in that bubble, everything is safe. People don't cuss, people don't drink, people don't do things wrong, and there's always a very happy ending because you believe in God.
Yeah.
And Catholics, Christians want that because they want the greenhouse, they want the protective bubble. She said Catholics have never been like that. Catholics have always been a part of the world, and that was one reason, she said, why Catholic fiction was not such a popular genre, because we have no problem going to Barnes and Noble and reading the dark stuff, reading about people behaving very badly, and knowing that it's wrong. So that, but sometimes you want to have that safer fiction. Sometimes you want something that really affirms your beliefs. You want the hothouse. You want where you're going in and you feel like there's support for you.
Yeah.
And there's something in there that nurtures you and helps you to grow so that you can go out into the world. And also that gives you a little bit of escapism. I mean, that's why we read fiction, is to escape the real world. In fact, I was just saying the other day that what's the definition of a good plot? It's bad things happening to another person far away from you.
Yeah, exactly. My wife and I joke, we're so stressed right now. Let's go watch somebody else going through traumatic stuff. And
Yes.
Yeah, I saw a definition the other day, which I've grown to really like. It was making the rounds on Instagram, where the difference between nonfiction and fiction, and somebody said, nonfiction is teaching truth through, let's say, real things, and fiction is teaching truth through the imagination. And I thought that was a very smart way to differentiate them. I like what you just said. There's a time and a place for the greenhouse, time and a place for a hothouse. The difference is, or it becomes problematic when you try to get exclusive or stay only in one, or to lionize only one approach as the only one that everybody should be following. Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. Legend fiction is very much anchored in the sense of either hothouse or foraging in the fields, and sort of get out there, get your arms dirty. What does the Pope Francis say? Stink of the sheep. Be a real human being, but without losing your lifeline, without losing your, what it is you're trying to do with this whole thing. So. Yeah, so you're hosting a session at LegendHaven to chat about this with anybody who wants to come and hang out with you. So we'll have that on the schedule for people who come and want to bring their questions. What can people look forward to? What can they look forward to with this session, apart from going a little more depth with this thought with you?
Well, that's a good question. I think that it's really going to depend on what people want to bring into it. So, we'll talk a little bit about what that means in a practical sense, and what it means to us as Catholics. I mean, how do we walk that line between being in the world and not being of the world, where we are taking in everything that the world does and thinking, well, maybe this is okay. And then what good books do to help us with that.
Yep, agreed. And since the con is mostly, it's readers and writers, so there'll be all kinds of people who have the chance to come and chat with you. It seems like it's the difference between, what are the words? An iron lung, I think is the definition, an iron lung or an inoculation. It's like you can, in terms of reading things, you can live inside a safe bubble where nothing sort of scary or harmful gets in, maybe. And there's maybe a place and a time in life for that. But then the other thing is to forage and feed yourself. What is this one definition I once read, which is a really healthy person or healthy constitution is somebody who's capable of eating practically everything in their environment. Obviously not the poisonous stuff, but if your diet is so anemic that you can, introducing one new thing sends you into puking, or you're not in a healthy situation.
That is so funny.
A variety.
I actually had a friend that she went on a very strict healthy diet
Oh
and
yeah.
for like a year or so, and she felt absolutely wonderful until she had a candy bar for the first time
Oh no.
in like a year and a half, and she said, "I was so sick. I'll never eat a candy bar again." And I was like, if that's the price of being healthy, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna go for my candy bar.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that's healthy.
There's
Yeah.
life and there's living.
Uh-huh. Yeah. No, we humans, I mean, we are where we are on the food chain or whatever. We're omnivores. We're meant to be like eating everything conceivable that comes out of the ground that can be healthy for us. Yeah, that's a different conversation. Okay. So talking about worlds, I guess, let's segue elegantly here. Let's talk about character creation because you've got, you love monsters. I think they're fantastic in so
I
many
do.
ways.
I have so much fun with
First monster
creating.
you ever loved or ever was wowed by. Do you remember?
I think it would have to be Godzilla.
Really?
Oh yeah, I remember
Yeah.
being in the drive-in and watching all the Godzilla movies with my parents.
Wow.
So I loved Godzilla. He was fun. And so it was great because last year I actually got to indulge in my love for Godzilla, and my son, who he's 30 now, he also is a big kaiju fan. And so last year I wrote a book called Idle Speculations, which is basically Vern versus Godzilla.
Well,
And so
okay.
yeah, so I got to indulge all of the fun with all the Godzilla cliches. And
You know, it's a novel I read in the last couple of months that was insanely fun. It was called The Kaiju Preservation Society. Did you ever read that?
I've heard of it, but I have not read it yet.
Okay, I think it's John Scalzi or something. Anyhow, it was
Yeah,
so much fun. It's just cheap cheese pizza or whatever, but it was just so fun to
that's called
burn through in a
popcorn
weekend.
reading.
Yeah, there you go. That was very
I'm
fun.
writing it down.
Yeah, Kaiju Preservation Society. So
I'll
more
bet my
recently
husband.
then, what's a monster that perhaps you've seen been created or introduced in fiction or media that kind of scratches that same itch for you?
Star Trek's reimagining of the Gorn.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I don't. For those Trek fans, you remember the original Gorn is just like this big lizardy guy in a rubber suit. But Star Trek just said, the new Star Trek just threw that all away and reimagined them as an insectoid species. And they're extremely creepy. They're very much like alien. They are far more credible threat. But the thing that really got me was, and it's something I talk about in my class, is how they didn't just say, okay, well, they're going to look like this and they're going to be creepy and they're going to move this way. They think this way. And so, like, one of the things that they established was that they don't really communicate verbally, but they communicate, like, over long distances. They communicate through visual effects.
Okay.
So their ships actually shine differently in order to communicate to other ships. And so, I hope it's not too much of a spoiler for those that have not seen Strange New Worlds last season. The new one's coming up, so you should have seen by now. But they have, the Gorn have annexed a planet, and you're like, well, why would they just suddenly do this? And then you find out in the cliffhanger episode that it's because there was a pulsar near this planet that shined a certain way that activated their mating drive.
Oh, interesting.
And this was the closest planet they could do it, so they just took it over, and they're taking over the humans and using them for food and egg fodder and all of that. And it's all because of the pulsar, all because they are a visual species with a deep, deep instinct, despite the obvious intelligence that allows them to star travel.
That's so intriguing. So what are some of the things that people can look forward to then with this class, or what are things that you enjoy walking people through or prompting them to think of?
We're going to talk about ways to come up with creatures using knowledge that we already have. Not just just not just going straight out of our imaginations, though, that you can come up with some amazing things that way. But there is so much knowledge in the world of the strange. I mean, we have myths, we have science, we have extremophile species on this earth. And there's so many ways that you can take a little of this and a little of that and put it together. And then we talk about how to go deeper, just like the Star Trek writers did with the Breen. Where, or not the Breen, the Gorn, rather, with the Gorn, where they say, okay, if this is what I want my species to be like, what does that really mean for them? It's more than just, hey, let's make them act this way to make it cute for the plot or make it work for the plot. But there's something deep within this creature, and I need to tap it. And so that's what I hope that I can help readers, or not readers, writers, to really delve into, so that our readers can have the same reaction I'm having about the Gorn, which is, wow, that's good.
It's so compelling because they've got their own agency, their own reason for doing things. Will this be the first time that you're giving this class?
Oh, no, I've given this class off and on for probably 10 or more years.
Wow. So, how has the class actually changed? Maybe how have you changed in your approach or some of your advice or thoughts?
The principles are all pretty much still the same. The examples, the knowledge gets more sophisticated. And of course, what the class brings to the table always adds to it, because sometimes there are people there who just have incredible insight into things, and they can bring that in with their questions or even with their own suggestions. So
fantastic.
If there's time, maybe we'll even take some time and let people build their own monsters.
That sounds fun. That sounds great. So let's well, in wrapping up then, folk, if you haven't yet done it, have a look in the description. You'll see 2 links below this video. One is for Legend Haven, which is where Karina will be joining us, where we're going live for the 3rd time. And you can head over there and register now and grab your ticket so that you can join us. We found a way to do things in an all-new way this year that we're very excited about. So it feels a bit more like a game instead of a bank of Zoom rooms. So hopefully we'll have a whole lot of fun. And then 2, check out the link for Karina's website. You can have a look at her books, have a look at her Substack. You're also a comedian, so you share and do hilarious stuff. Is that all on the same website, or is that a different place?
Yeah, there is a page for my comedy. And in fact, if there are any Florida Catholics that live on the Space Coast and you see this before September 20th, I am doing a free show at St. John the Evangelist at 8 p.m. on Friday, September 20th. Love to have you there. It would be great. More the merrier.